Hi again. So, part 2 of cardiovascular fitness. In this part, we will cover considerations for training and measuring progress. I don't know how long this is going to go, so no point f***ing around. Let's get to it. So, let's talk the SAID principle. Specific adaptation for imposed demand. Translation: if all you do is sit on the couch eating Cheetos, your body will adapt to accomplish that task, and no more. Congratulations, you are a champion. Fortunately, some of us aim a little higher. Most of us, when we think of cardiovascular exercise, think long distance or endurance type activities like sustained walking, running, cycling, and so on. And you're right, but as we will see, that's not the only thing we can be doing. But back on the couch for a second, let's start with the obvious question. Are you fitting in at least 150 minutes or 2.5 hours of heart-pumping physical activity per week? Those are the recommendations of the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology. I would suggest that you consider those as the minimum bar to remain healthy, keeping in mind that any activity is better than no activity. If you want to improve your cardiovascular fitness, you need to get your heart beating faster and pumping more. I think most people are familiar with the concept of trying to sustain a heart rate of 50 to 85% of their age maximum rate during exercise. You can find that data on charts like these that are readily available in gyms everywhere and on the interwebs. You can use your smartwatch or Fitbit to measure this, or take a pulse. If all of that seems too complicated, you could simply work so that you feel that you are breathing heavily but can still hold a short conversation. You should feel like you can continue at this level of intensity for about an hour. In case you're wondering, I didn't just make that up. It corresponds to something called the Borg scale rating of perceived exertion. It's another way to measure intensity. The description corresponds to moderate activity, which is a 4 to 6 on the modified Borg scale. Cool? For those of you just getting off the couch, that's all you need. For those of you that want some more detail, here we go. First, mice. Mice? No. Still no. Remember those commonly thought of endurance type exercises that we all think of as cardio? Exercise physiologists, who are natural comedians, call those exercises mice. Moderate intensity cardiovascular exercise. Mice definitely works. However, it isn't the only model. There's also high intensity interval training, or HIIT. For those who don't know, HIIT is composed of short periods of very intense exercise, separated by short periods of rest or low intensity work. I have heard discussed in various forums that too much HIIT is detrimental to health, especially heart health, so I went looking for the science. While I did not find anything to show heart damage with too much HIIT, there was one influential study that is often cited and has been quoted in major media as well. What these researchers did was expose subjects to increasing frequencies of HIIT training while measuring the impact on the health of their subjects. They found that there is an upper limit of how much HIIT training is beneficial. More than that, and the power systems of working muscle cells start to become increasingly dysfunctional. Subjects did not show a problem at 3 sessions per week or 90 minutes total per week. At the next experimental increase, the subjects began to have difficulty. In the overtrained condition, athletes' physical performance stagnated or decreased. The subject's muscles also became resistant to the influence of insulin to store sugar. There were also further derangements in sugar metabolism at the cellular level. Keeping in mind that the test subjects were elite athletes, a safer limit is likely 2 HIIT sessions per week as a maximum. However, as the authors of the paper are at pains to spell out, quote, "We do not see a high risk that people wishing to improve their health through exercise enter the state of mitochondrial impairment and glucose intolerance," end quote. So, which should you be doing, mice or HIIT? Well, despite the plethora of clickbait headlines you will read, probably a combination of both. By most measures in the scientific literature, the benefits of cardiovascular exercise are similar between mice and HIIT. However, that does not mean that they are the same. In one 2013 paper, they indicate that different endurance exercise intensities and durations are needed for different systems in the body. They suggest that very short periods of high-intensity endurance-type exercise may be needed to reach a threshold for peripheral metabolic adaptations, but that longer training durations at lower intensities are required to see large changes in maximal cardiac output and VO2 max. To simplify, HIIT for muscles and the miles of blood vessels in your body, and MICE for the heart and lungs. Finally, we should discuss how you know how fit you are and whether you are improving with training. Although I won't spend too much time on the topic, there is a lot to be said for practical, simple methods. For example, how long can you run or walk at a moderate pace without stopping? Is that duration increasing? It may not be the most precise, but for many people, it's a good measure and all they need. Simple and practical, however, is not the world we live in, when even the marketing of a toothbrush touts the enormous scientific and engineering research and expertise that goes into designing a stick with some bristles. So, for all the techno-gizmo aficionados out there, there's VO2 max. If you recall, the definition we agreed on for cardiovascular capacity is the ability to deliver oxygen to working muscles and use it for activity. VO2 max is a lab measurement of this ability that just puts it into units of milliliters of oxygen consumed per minute per kilogram of body weight. It is typically measured in the lab where the O2 concentrations per unit volume can be measured with a bajillion-dollar machine.
And get the machine that goes bing!
Some smartwatches and other devices purport to measure this. Sort of. What your device is doing is using heart rate to estimate VO2 max using a formula. It is useful, but keep in mind that it was scientifically validated using cycling, and so other activities might introduce more error than intended. You can use VO2 max to measure change in fitness. VO2 max can also be used to compare your current fitness to the general population, since there are large data sets for comparison. So there you have it. Cardiovascular fitness is the ability to get oxygen to your working muscles to power any activity lasting longer than 30 seconds. It should interest you, since many activities you want and need to do are longer than that. Oh, and if not dying sounds good to you, that's important. Ultimately, do the exercise program you will stick with. Exercise only works if you do it regularly. If you are looking to maximize benefit, you should do some moderate intensity longer sessions and some high intensity interval workouts. If you really want to geek out, you can track your VO2 max. Just remember to look up from your smartwatch during your runs, because of car! Cue the royalty-free music.